All right, my friends, welcome. We are here for Unshakable Self-Love. Three keys to embrace your worth and create the love you want. So, if you are ready to have a more loving relationship with yourself, to move beyond old patterns so that you can really feel more at home in who you are and create the healthy, loving relationships you want, you are in the right place. So type yes in the chat or the comments if that sounds good to you. So I want to thank you. Yes, yes, yes. I want to acknowledge you and congratulate you for taking this time for yourself. And I'm very excited that you're here. My intention is that you leave today with a deeper understanding of what may be getting in the way of you having the loving relationship you want with yourself and with others, that you experience what it really means to come home to yourself and reconnect with the part of you that already knows you are enough and begin making choices from that more grounded place. Does that sound good? Yeah, that's my intention for you today. And we have a lot to explore. I'm really happy that you're here. I'm going to share three keys that will help you understand what's really underneath these patterns that keep repeating. And again, just helping you reconnect with who you truly are beneath the wounds and the old patterns, the old beliefs. Recognize the power you have to make different choices so you can begin creating the love you want. And of course, real change takes time, but you will leave today with some valuable insights and practical tools you can start using right away. So, if what we talk about today leaves you wanting to go deeper or feeling that you'd benefit from some more personal support, I will be sharing at the end how you can do that. So, we're going to be together for about 90 minutes, and I will leave time at the end for questions and answers and a little personal coaching for anyone who would like to stay on for that. I also have a special gift for those of you who are here live. It's called the Relationship Pattern Finder. It's a special tool that will help you identify the pattern that may be getting in the way of the love that you want. And I will show you how to access that before we wrap up at the end. And so I just want to say the time that we have together right now is going to be really valuable and it can be a really transformational experience. So I want to invite you to really give yourself this time, to give yourself the gift of being fully present. So if you can, go ahead, silence your phone. That reminds me, I'm going to silence my phone. Do not disturb. Close off any other tabs you might have open. Really give yourself permission to take this time for yourself and just set everything else aside for now. Nothing more important than you and this time that you have now for yourself. So you'll probably want to have a journal or something to write with nearby because I'm going to be asking you some questions and giving you some time to reflect. And if you're able to, if you can, please turn your camera on because seeing one another helps us create this warm, connected space so we can really feel like we're here together. And I will also be inviting you to share with me in the chat as we go. Okay, so let's, to begin, I want to invite us to just all take a moment and just do a little centering breath together so that we can land here, become fully present. Does that sound good? Yeah. So just get comfortable. If you feels comfortable, just place your feet on the floor and you can close your eyes or just soften your gaze, bring your awareness within yourself. And maybe you want to have one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, your lower stomach, your center. And let's just take in a slow, deep breath, feeling that air go all the way down into your belly, to your center. Releasing on the out breath, just taking a few nice deep breaths here together. And as we exhale, just allowing ourselves to let go of the day so far, just letting it all go, not thinking about anything that already happened or anything else that's going to happen later. We're just being here now, fully present in this moment as we breathe and relax. Just for these next 90 minutes or so, giving yourself permission to simply be here for you. And then when you're ready, you can just gently bring your awareness back. So welcome. Hopefully that feels you feel a little more present now. I always feel better after a few centering breaths. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I'm Risa Gaull. I'm a self-love and relationship coach for women. And before we dive into the three keys, I would just like to share just a little bit of my own story because this work is deeply personal to me. And I didn't arrive here because I had self-love all figured out. I came to it through my own experience of searching for love and security outside myself and eventually realizing I had completely lost myself along the way. So I remember the day so clearly. I was at a Tai Chi retreat and there was a man that I knew who was also there. We were acquaintances, but during that retreat, something shifted between us. We made a real connection. And at the end of the treat, he had this little ball that was painted to look like the earth. And he handed it to me and he said, "I'm giving you my world." And it was such a sweet moment. And before long, our friendship grew into love. And I truly believed I had found my person, the man who I would spend the rest of my life with. And so we got married. And for years, I felt safe and secure with him. I believed we were building a happy life together. But then everything began to change. I remember watching him come through the door one evening, staggering and grabbing onto the wall to steady himself. And that moment, I realized that my husband had a serious problem with alcohol. And I went into my room and I just collapsed on the bed and I wept and I was gripped with fear because I had no idea what was going to happen to him or to me or to our marriage. And so, not long afterward, he fell into a deep depression. And the man I had depended on to be my rock was unable to be there for me or even for himself. It felt like my whole world was crashing down around me. I was constantly on edge, never knowing what I was going to come home to. And I poured everything I had into trying to help him, rescue him, and hold our life together. One night, I was taking a walk with my friend, and I was telling her how sad it made me to see him struggling like this. She stopped and turned to me, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "Risa, it makes me sad to see how much you're struggling." And her words just hit me like a ton of bricks. I stood there on that sidewalk. I just stood there and I thought, wow, where am I? Where am I in all of this? I had become so focused on him that I completely lost myself in that relationship. And I began to realize this wasn't only about my husband or his alcoholism. Becoming so focused on what someone else wanted and needed that I lost touch with myself was a pattern that I'd really been living for a lot of my life. I had become very good at tuning into other people, paying attention to what they wanted and needed, and being who I thought they wanted me to be in order to gain their approval. But in the process, I had lost touch with what I felt, what I needed, and what was true for me. And here comes someone else to join us. I just let her in. So underneath it all, I had been looking to other people for the love and security I really needed to learn how to give myself. Now, your circumstances may look very different from mine. Maybe you've never loved someone who struggled with alcoholism, but perhaps you know what it feels like to become so focused on someone else that you lose touch with yourself. Can anybody relate to that? Or to depend on someone else for your sense of love and security, only to feel lost when they can't be there for you in the way that you need. So, standing there on that sidewalk, I knew something had to change. Ultimately, I made the very difficult decision to end my marriage. But I also realized that making that choice by itself would not change the deeper pattern. If I continued, looking to someone else for love and security while losing touch with myself, I could easily just repeat that pattern in another relationship. I knew I needed to find my way back to myself, but the truth was, I really didn't know how to do that. So I found a coach and I began doing the deepest inner work of my life. Through that work, I learned how to stay present with myself, to listen to what I felt, to honor what I needed, and trust myself again. Most importantly, I learned how to give myself the love, reassurance, and approval I had spent my whole life seeking from other people. Little by little, I stopped looking to someone else to make me happy, and I began creating that happiness for myself. I remember hiking to the top of a mountain and sitting on a rock and looking out at a view that just stretched for miles. I sat there thinking about my life, my friendships, my beautiful home, and all the love that surrounded me. And tears just filled my eyes and started rolling down my cheeks. I felt so grateful for everything I had. And I realized I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not waiting for someone else to make my life feel complete. My life is already so full. And for the first time, I wasn't searching for someone else to fill this empty space inside me. I felt deeply connected to myself and I was genuinely happy. And that journey eventually led me to become a certified diamond process transformational life coach. And I was also one of just 40 coaches selected to be personally mentored by bestselling author Catherine Woodward Thomas in her newest body of work, Awakening to the True You. So today, I help other women come home to who they truly are beneath the limiting beliefs and old patterns, reconnect with their worth, and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships. And wouldn't you know it, excuse me, now that I'm happy with myself and grateful for everything I already have, someone new has come into my life recently. It's still new, but it has unfolded so naturally and has already brought me so much joy. And what feels different this time is that I'm not looking to the relationship to make me happy or give me a sense of security. Staying connected to myself and feeling free to be who I am, it's still a practice for me. But now I'm just more able to notice when I start losing touch with myself and I know how to find my way back. So, what I've come to understand is that another person can bring tremendous love into your life, but they are not the source of your love, your worth, or your security. And that's really at the heart of what I want to share with you today. So type a yes in the chat if any of this feels resonant for you. You can see yourself in any part of that story. Yeah. I work with so many women who have similar patterns, similar feelings. So let's dive in. Teaching key number one. We ready for key number one? Here's key number one. I'm going to be holding up some cards too so you can see. Key number one, I call the missing piece. And so as children, we begin learning ways of relating to the people around us. And we notice we're very smart at a very young age. We're very intuitive. We're very resourceful. So we notice what helps us feel loved and accepted, what helps us stay connected, and what may lead to what feels like criticism or conflict or disapproval. And because we're depending on the adults around us, we learn to adapt, right? We may learn to be agreeable, to do everything perfectly, or to take responsibility for how other people feel. And these aren't conscious choices that we make. They're survival strategies. They're survival strategies. A way that this younger part of us learn to feel safe, to receive love and approval, and maintain connection with the people we're depending on. So that's what I want you to really understand here, is that these patterns were survival strategies. They were survival strategies. And the problem is that they keep showing up in our adult relationships now, but they're not serving us. In fact, they're undermining what it is that we really want to create. So let's look at three of the most common patterns and see if you recognize yourself in any of them. And just notice which one or ones, if you're like me, I've had all three of these, feel most familiar to yourself. So pattern number one, very, very common, people pleasing. Right? We call people pleasing. This is when you become so focused on keeping other people happy or gaining their approval that you lose touch with what's true for you. You know, maybe you say yes when you really want to say no. Maybe you go along with what someone else wants because you don't want to disappoint them or create conflict. Or you find yourself watching someone's face or listening to their tone of voice, wondering, are they upset with me? Did I do something wrong? What are they thinking about me? Right? And you may change what you say, how you act, or even who you are based on how you think that other person will respond. Right? That was me. I'll just show up and be whoever I think you want me to be, or say what I think you want me to say in order for me to feel like I'm getting your approval. Right? Like the chameleon effect. Not so fun. Right. So underneath this pattern, this people pleasing pattern, there's often a belief of that, right? If you're happy with me, then I'll be okay. If I'm who you want me to be, I'll receive your love and approval. And really, at the root of all these patterns, we're just trying to keep ourselves safe and feel loved. Like that's all, you know, we're little kids. That's all we want. We just want to make sure we're safe and that we feel loved. And so we develop these patterns to what we call it a winning strategy or a survival strategy or a winning strategy. It's like, oh, I learned. What do I need to do? How do I need to show up to keep you happy so I feel safe and loved? Right. So that's people pleasing. Pattern number two, perfectionism. I sometimes call myself a recovering perfectionist. I'm this one too. So this somehow, somewhere along the way, we maybe got rewarded for how we performed. If we got the gold star, then we got a lot of, attention and love. And so it's just the belief that, we need to do everything right or a certain way in order to feel worthy or accepted or loved. We learned that we're valued for maybe what we do instead of for who we are. And so what does it look like? You may hold yourself to impossibly high standards or be very hard on yourself when you make a mistake. Maybe you overthink things, you compare yourself with others or put something off because you're afraid you're not going to do it well enough. I can totally see myself in, these old patterns. And even in relationships, you might feel like, oh, I need to look a certain way or become some ideal version of myself in order to be worthy, to be chosen, to be enough, to be loved, right? And so underneath perfectionism is often a belief such as, well, if I do everything right, I won't be criticized or rejected. Or if I can just be more or do more, like be perfect enough, then maybe I'll finally feel that I'm enough. But what the problem with this is that part of you that feels like you're not enough is never gonna, there's nothing that you can ever do that's gonna make that part feel like it's enough. And we'll get more into what we do about how to change these patterns in a minute. But that's perfectionism. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah. All right. Number three, this is another really common one. These are sort of three most common, is feeling overly responsible. Feeling overly responsible for other people. And so maybe you grew up in a household where maybe there was a lot of chaos and you felt like you had to sort of take care of the adults around you or the people around you that really should have been taking care of you. But this, the belief is that, well, if everyone else is okay, then I can be okay too. Or if I can fix this, then I'll feel safe, right? So it shows up when you feel just responsible for fixing things or holding everything together, making sure everyone's okay. Maybe you feel responsible for another person's happiness or problems or choices or how they feel. If someone you love is upset, you immediately wonder, like, what can you do to make it better? Or maybe like, what did you do wrong? And what do you need to do to make it better? Right? You may step in and give advice, try to rescue, take things on that really aren't yours to carry, just like I did in my marriage. And you may become so focused on what everyone else feels and needs that you just stop to ask yourself, what do I need? What am I feeling? Right? So just taking a moment now, take a breath, just notice. Don't go into judgment. Just notice which of these patterns do you resonate with most strongly? And maybe it's more than one. We have people pleasing, we have perfectionism, or feeling overly responsible. Share with us in the chat if you feel comfortable which pattern or patterns that you resonate with the most here. Just take a minute to think about which resonates. All three, mostly people pleasing. I can relate to that. Yes, sadly, all three, mostly 2 and 3. Yeah, I find there's a lot of overlap between these. I've relied on all three. Yeah, okay, we're all triple winners, or some of us. Okay, winning strategies.
1 and 3. Yeah, AWT.
Okay, so thank you for sharing. Now, if you recognize yourself in more than one pattern, or you're not sure which is the most dominant one, that's completely okay. And you may have more than one. I'm going to share with you at the end, for those of you who are here live, that special gift I have for you, the relationship pattern finder, which will help you identify what your predominant pattern or patterns are. So don't worry if it's not abundantly clear to you right now. This will help you identify what the most prevalent pattern is for you. But for now, as you think about this pattern that you resonate with most, maybe just like pick one that you feel most strongly you're resonating with in this moment, and just take a breath, and let's just see if you can hold that, like bring it to your mind and just hold that thought of this, this pattern, seeing yourself doing this pattern, and just hold it with curiosity and compassion rather than going into judgment about it, because I know it's easy to just go into judgment when we see something we don't like about how we're showing up, right? So, because what I want you to understand, like I said, is that these patterns developed for a really good reason. They were brilliant. They were brilliant strategies, brilliant survival strategies that helped at some point you feel safe and loved and accepted and connected. And so when I call them survival strategies, I don't necessarily mean you were in physical danger. Maybe some of you were, but that's not necessarily what I mean. But as children, we depended on the adults around us for love and safety and connection. And so we just learned to adapt in whatever ways helped us receive that love and avoid criticism or conflict or rejection. And so this is the thing. Underneath each of these patterns is often this sort of younger, wounded part who is simply trying to get the love that she needed, right? The people-pleasing part was just trying to receive love and approval. The perfectionistic part may have been trying to avoid criticism or rejection. And the overly responsible part, just trying to create safety or prevent something from going wrong. So I'm going to invite you to take another breath as you bring this pattern to mind that you've identified that you're resonating with most strongly right now. And just ask yourself, what was this pattern trying to help me receive? And I'm going to put this in the chat too, so you can see. Asking yourself, what was this pattern trying to help me receive? Was it love, approval, safety, acceptance, connection? And then ask, what was it trying to help me avoid? Maybe it was conflict, criticism, rejection. Just take a moment, write down whatever comes to you. There's no perfect answer. Just notice what arises. And so, oh, I forgot to hit send on the chat. Sorry, you guys. There it is. Yeah. what, if we can start to just notice what was the pattern trying to help me do? What was it trying to help me receive? Or what was it trying to protect me from? Right. And so when we can start to recognize what the pattern was trying to help you do, is really a good important first step, because it helps us start to begin looking at ourselves with understanding and compassion instead of going into judgment. Do you feel like when you look at this now, you feel a little bit more compassion toward yourself? It's like, oh yeah, there's just this younger wounded part that was just trying to stay safe and loved. And look at all the winning strategies. Don't feel so winning anymore, but they were winning strategies at the time, and they were brilliant, and they were there for a good reason. So can we just cut ourselves a little bit of a break right now when we see that we still have these patterns running, right? Raise your hand if you'd be willing to cut yourself a break right now and know there's good reasons those patterns are there. They served you really, really well at one time when you were little. Not so much right now. Yes. So this is where many of us get stuck too. Like maybe we understand the pattern, maybe we know exactly where it came from, but yet we still find ourselves repeating it. We tell ourselves, all right, next time I'm going to speak up. I'm going to set a boundary. I'm not going to worry so much about what they think. But then someone becomes upset with us, or we feel criticized or rejected. And before we knew it, the old pattern is rushing right back. And then we get frustrated and think, why am I still doing this? I know better. Like, why do I keep doing this? Right? So understanding the pattern intellectually, it's not enough to change it. I think it helps somewhat to understand it and maybe where it comes from, but this is the missing piece. It's the younger part underneath who created the pattern that still believes she needs that to feel safe and receive love, right? And so when we're trying to just make change on the level of our behavior, it's like cutting off the top of a weed while leaving the root in the ground, right? The behavior might disappear, it might change for a little while, but this when something triggers that old wound, it grows right back. So that doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you haven't done enough work. It doesn't mean change isn't possible. It means that lasting change isn't about fighting the pattern or forcing yourself to behave differently. It begins by recognizing the younger part underneath it, understanding what she's been trying to do for you, and beginning to meet that younger wounded part with compassion instead of judgment. And so this is the missing piece, my friends. Key number one, the missing piece is recognizing that underneath the behavior is just this younger part of you who still needs your love and attention. And so once you recognize that younger part, so how do we begin giving her the love she needs? And remembering that these wounds are not the whole truth of who you are, which brings us to the second key, my friends. We ready for key number two? Key number two is coming home to yourself. Coming home to yourself. And so at the heart of this key is one very important truth. You ready for the big truth? You are not your wounds. You are not your wounds. You may carry around a wound that says, I'm not good enough. You may have a part of you that feels unlovable, unworthy, or who's afraid of being left. But that wounded part is not the whole of who you are. And that was a profound realization for me. I remember sitting with my coach and saying to her, she's like, just deep down, I just feel like I'm not good enough. And at that time, a part of me truly believed like that was true. That was the truth of who I was. But she helped me see that that's not all of me. It's just one part of me, a younger part that didn't feel good and needed love. She asked me, well, that's okay. There's part of you that just doesn't feel good enough. Can we embrace that part too? Can you give that part the love she needs? And something shifted for me in that moment. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I could begin saying, there's a part of me that doesn't feel good enough. Can you feel the difference? I'm not good enough turns the wound into your identity. And a part of me doesn't feel good enough creates space for you to recognize the wound without believing that it defines you. Right. And so we're moving from I'm not good enough to part of me, part of me doesn't feel good enough. Right. And so I had to understand now, like that was just how I learned to see myself. That's the problem that most of us have, honestly. We're just way over identified with that wounded part. We believe that story, that meaning that whatever that little one was experiencing growing up, that she made it mean whatever she made it mean about herself. It's like, oh, well, I'm not getting the love and attention I need, or whatever was happening. That must mean I'm not good enough, right? So as little kids, that's what we do. We make meaning about ourselves out of whatever was happening. And so, we just confuse this painful belief that we've carried for years with the truth of who we are. It's like the sun on a cloudy day, right? The clouds may temporarily cover the sun, and that may change the way you can see or even make the whole day feel dark. But the clouds never actually diminish the light of the sun itself. So your wounds and your limiting beliefs, they're like those clouds. They may affect what you see and how you feel, but they never diminish your worth. Beneath everything you've experienced, the truth is that you've always been whole, worthy, and lovable, just as you are. And so coming home to yourself means remembering that deeper truth while also learning to embrace those parts of you that still feel wounded. And so it's not about pushing those parts away or pretending they don't exist or covering them with positive affirmations. And, so often I just was in so much judgment about myself. It's like, why can't I just like myself? I don't like feeling this way. I don't want to feel this way. But when we're in judgment, that's not helping us, because what's really needed is that um, we need to turn toward that younger part, that wounded part. And it isn't about becoming some perfect, completely healed version of yourself. It's about learning to not abandon yourself in those moments when the wounded parts appear. And so this is what happens, is that younger part is afraid, feels unworthy, and then we leave ourselves. We judge what we feel. We tell ourselves, I don't want to feel that way. Or, we just try to make those uncomfortable feelings disappear as quickly as possible. And that's natural and normal because we don't want to feel stuff that doesn't feel good. But what's really called for here is to learn how to meet ourselves with whatever we're experiencing with compassion and acceptance instead of judgment. And that's what I mean when I say coming home to yourself. Can we stay present with ourselves and meet ourselves with compassion and hold ourselves gently through all our experiences and all our feelings? And so I'd love to guide you through a little practice right now to give you an experience of how do we actually do this. I call it's a mini self-love power practice. Would you guys like to take a minute and do a little self-love power practice with me? This is really like a life-changing practice that you can take with you and continue to use. So it's actually, this is what I'm going to share with you. It's just a shortened version of a deeper process that I use with my clients. But for today, I want to give you a simple exercise of what it feels like to turn toward yourself with love instead of judgment. And so if it feels comfortable, I invite you to just place both feet on the floor, get comfortable where you're sitting. Take a breath, and you may want to close your eyes or just bring your awareness within yourself. And just taking a slow, deep breath in. Maybe again, you want to have one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, your center, and just feeling that air go all the way down into your belly and just letting it go. And just getting centered in yourself here. your wise, adult, loving self, the part of you who can just observe and be curious about those little wounded parts. And just bring to mind a recent moment you noticed when one of those patterns was arriving where you felt like you were people pleasing or feeling like you needed to be perfect or feeling overly responsible for people. Just if you can bring to mind a moment where you noticed maybe one of those patterns running, and choose something that feels manageable, not the most painful or overwhelming experience. Maybe you wanted to speak up, but you stayed quiet. Maybe you were worried that someone was disappointing you or was disappointed in you. Maybe you felt responsible for fixing something that wasn't yours. Just notice as you think about that, what do you feel and where do you feel it in your body? As you think about this moment and feel into it, where do you feel it in your body? Maybe there's a tightness in your chest or a heaviness in your stomach or tension in your shoulders, and you don't need to change it. There's no agenda here to fix anything or change anything. You're just noticing. You're just witnessing from this higher perspective and just recognizing this may be a younger part of you that just needs your love and attention right now. And if it feels comfortable, just again, either placing your hand over your heart or wherever you feel that sensation in your body, just put your hands on it and imagine you're turning toward that younger part rather than pushing her away and just sending her some love. You could silently say to her, I see you. I hear you. I'm here. I'm here with you. I love you. And you are enough just as you are. And just let that younger part know I'm here and I'll continue to be here for you. And you don't have to work through everything right now. If there's more that she needs, let her know. You can come back and spend more time with her later. And we'll just take one more slow, deep breath together. And as you breathe out, just imagine releasing anything you're ready to let go of. Feeling once again your feet on the floor. Feel the support of the chair beneath you. Just feel your body. Notice the room around you. Maybe you want to just wiggle your fingers or roll your shoulders or gently move your body and just bring your awareness back to yourself here and now in this moment. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring your full attention back to the room. And just notice what that experience was like for you. Um, Again, you don't have to fix anything. You don't have to make any feelings disappear. What we did, we just simply turned toward yourself. You simply turned toward yourself, stayed present, and offered that younger part your love and attention because often that's really all she needs. She just needs to be seen and heard, right? How often in our lives do we feel like we just need to be heard or just need to be seen? Your little one often just needs to know you're there as the loving adult now who can be there for her like a loving parent, right? So that's why I say you are the love you seek. You are the love you seek. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't want or need love from other people. We're human, we're made for connection, and relationships can bring tremendous love and joy into our lives. It means that you stop asking another person to be your sole source of love and worth and security. You are the love you seek. You begin giving yourself the reassurance, the acceptance, and compassion you may have spent much of your life seeking from other people if you're like me. So, when we start to learn how to give ourselves that love, that reassurance, and comfort that younger little wounded one inside that's at the root of all these patterns and these limiting beliefs, we start to come home to ourselves. You become more available for love, for relationships with other people, not because you've become perfect, but because you're no longer abandoning yourself in order to receive it, right? You stay connected to what you feel. You can honor what you need. You can bring your whole authentic self into your relationships. And so I have another question for you here, which I will also put in the chat. Before we move on, take a moment now and just ask yourself, I'm putting it in the chat, what would become possible in my life and in my relationships if I truly knew I was already worthy? And just write down whatever comes to you. And I'll give you a minute to reflect on that. What becomes possible in my life, in my relationships, if I show up from that place where I already know I am worthy, I feel worthy, and I already know that I am? What do you think would be possible? What would be different? And then, yeah, anything and everything. Yeah, if you feel comfortable, share in the chat. Share one thing that would become possible for you in the chat. Let's all inspire each other here a little bit. Would feel more free. Probably have a lot more fun. Here, here. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So, yeah, learning to stay connected with yourself is really where this begins. This is where all the change begins, right here. But if we want something different, really in our lives and relationships, we also need to look at how we're showing up with other people. Like first, we got to know how to show up for ourselves, and now we're going to talk a little bit about looking at how are we showing up with other people, right? And recognize where we have the power to make some different choices now. So that brings us to the third key, my friends. Key number 3 is called the Freedom Code. You ready for the Freedom Code? So, first of all, I want to acknowledge that what happened to you as a child, whatever your experience was not your fault, right? What happened was not your fault. I even put it in writing here so you can really take that in, right? As a child, you had very few choices. We didn't have the power we have as adults. We just had to adapt, right? You adapted in whatever ways you needed to adapt, and there may be wounds from those experiences that still need your love and attention and healing. There may still be healing that needs to happen around that, but you're no longer that child who had very few choices. As an adult, you now have the power to choose what you want to create moving forward. Maybe it doesn't feel like that right now, but I'm telling you, you do have that power. And this is where self-responsibility comes in. This is the first step. And when I say self-responsibility, that doesn't mean blaming yourself. Okay. Read this. Self-responsibility does not mean self-blame. It just means I'm willing to look honestly at myself right now, how I'm showing up, and also just recognizing, and we're going to dive into this so you'll see a little more about what I mean, but recognizing like, okay, how are the ways that I'm showing up now when are shaping my experience, right? So we can't control how other people behave, but we can notice how the choices that we're making in response to others, right? You may notice that you stay quiet instead of speaking up. Maybe I say yes when I want to say no. Or I try to be who I think someone else wants me to be in order to gain their approval. Those are all ways that I'm showing up in relationship to other people. And so when I can just be compassionate and notice the patterns, like what are the ways that I've been showing up? And here's the thing is that when you can really own your part, see your part clearly, then we can reclaim our power, right? Seeing yourself as your source of your experience now, recognizing how we're showing up, maybe reinforcing the old story. So, for example, maybe the old story is, well, maybe I learned that my needs don't matter. That was the story I learned. That's the limiting belief I have. My needs don't matter, right? So when you believe that story, you may not be expressing what you need. You might not be asking people for what you need because you're believing my needs don't matter. So you don't ask for what you need. And you tell yourself it isn't important. And you just accommodate the other person and hope they'll somehow read your mind or notice what you need without having to ask. But they may not know what you need because you haven't told them. It's usually how it works. And so then your needs go unmet, and it can feel like more evidence for the old story. See, my needs don't really matter. No one's meeting my needs. But again, this isn't about blaming yourself. It's just about recognizing where you have the power. So to see the pattern and where you can interrupt it, it's like recognizing, oh, okay, so like I'm not really asking for what I need. So we arrive at what I call a choice point. A choice point. A choice point is the moment when you notice the old pattern and you have an opportunity to choose a new way of showing up. So instead of automatically assuming or waiting for someone to guess what I need, maybe I can choose to express it clearly in that moment, ask for what I need. Or instead of automatically saying yes, maybe I will pause and ask myself first, what is it that I actually want? Or instead of taking responsibility for someone else's feelings, you allow them to have their experience while staying connected to your own. Instead of silencing yourself to avoid disapproval, maybe you risk telling the truth and really saying what you really think and what you really feel and risking that disapproval or rejection. So each time you make one of these new choices, you begin creating evidence for a new story. Can you see how that works? Right? We make new choices, we create new evidence, which helps us create a new story. Oh, I start showing up differently. I'm having a different experience. Oh, someone is accommodating my needs. Maybe my needs do matter. Oh, maybe uh I can still really fully be myself and still be loved. Maybe I can really say what I think and how I feel and I won't get rejected. Maybe I don't have to earn love by being more or doing more, right? So we make new choices when we see those choice points and we start to create evidence for a new story. So I'm going to invite you now, bring to mind, first of all, let's take another breath. Is this landing? Is this making sense? Like we just have to own our side of the street now. It's like being willing to look at these old patterns. How am I showing up? And what are the ways that I'm sort of like reinforcing that story, that old story? And here's where we get to start to break the pattern, right? So bring to mind just whatever you feel like, maybe one limiting belief, one old story that's been showing up in your life. Maybe it's, I'm not good enough. Maybe it's, my needs don't matter. Maybe it's not safe to fully be myself. Like, write down one limiting belief that you feel has been showing up a lot for you in your life or your relationships. And just take a minute to write that down. Take a second to write that down. And I'm going to ask you a few more questions about that. And I'm going to put them in the chat as well. First, let's just ask yourself now, when I believe this story, how do I tend to show up with other people? Right? If I feel like I'm not good enough and I'm seeking other people's approval and I don't get it, that reinforces the belief, oh, yeah, maybe I'm really not good enough. Right. So when I believe this story, whatever is the story, the limiting belief, how, when I believe that and when I'm in that story, how do I tend to show up with other people? And just take a minute to think about that, write that down. Not blaming ourselves, just getting honest. And then asking, how might that way of showing up be contributing to more of the same experience? Right? How is that reinforcing the belief? Right? How am I contributing to more of the same experience? And finally, what new choice or new way of being would begin creating evidence for a different story? What new choice could I make that would start creating new evidence for a new story? So just take a couple of minutes, write down whatever you notice. Questions are in the chat. When I believe this story, how am I showing up? How is that contributing to me having more of the same experience, reinforcing that belief? And what new choice could I make that would begin creating new evidence for a new story? Or, and if you feel comfortable, just share that choice. If you've identified a new choice that you could make, how is it that you want to start showing up differently? What's one new choice you can make? Share with us in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. So I know these are deep questions and we probably need to sit with it a little longer than just a couple minutes. But if you write down the questions or maybe you want to even just save the chat, you can come back to this and do some more journaling with it, spend a little more time with your journal. But um, really there's really something important that's happening when we can start to answer these questions is that um, when we can start to see how we're now the source of the experience that we're having, how we're contributing to the experience, then we have the power to make a new choice. When we can see ourselves as the source of our experience, I'm not a victim anymore of what happened in the past. I'm not a victim of how people are showing up. I'm taking responsibility for myself. I'm just noticing, wow, this has been my pattern. This is my old pattern. I'm showing up from a place of caring too much about what other people think. And my new choice might be to stay focused on, being what I call self-referenced. Stay focused on what I think, how I feel, what I need, stay present with myself. So it's just a new choice on either how I want to show up with other people. Maybe I'm going to start asking for what I need, or how I want to show up differently with myself, right? What new choice? Yeah, so even though I know the stuff, can't drop it from my head to my behavior. Oh, yeah, you're bringing us right into the segue here. That I guess is my limiting belief. I think I probably show up as in control, which probably makes me seem unapproachable. Mm. The new choice, not sure, honestly, maybe drop the expectations of myself and everyone else. Okay, thank you for sharing. So this is important because knowing what to do isn't usually enough, and because making new choice, like that's the first step, is identifying like what's the new choice I could make. But making new choices often requires new skills and capacities, right? So maybe maybe I need to speak up. but I become overwhelmed with fear when that moment comes. Maybe I know I need to set a better boundary, but I feel guilty when someone gets disappointed. Maybe I know another person's feelings aren't my responsibility, but I still feel compelled to fix everything for them. Right. So just knowing what the pattern is, knowing what the new choice is, often requires being able to um, have new skills and practice and support. So new choices require new skills and practice and support. Just knowing what the choice is isn't usually enough, right? So we need to learn. These are missing skills and capacities that we never learned how to do, that we need to learn now. We can learn now, right? Maybe we need to, just like I said, learn how to stay present when someone's disappointed in me. Maybe I learned, um, yeah, learn to be more comfortable expressing my needs, saying no, or allowing another person to have those feelings without making them my responsibility. So these capacities, they develop through awareness and practice and support. And that's why the coaching can be so valuable. And so when I work with my clients, we not only identify what needs to change, but we look at the specific moments when those patterns take over and what we need to do to build the emotional capacity and the relationship skills we need to make different choice when it matters, right? Being the woman who can stay connected to herself and actually do it is the deeper transformation that happens. So this is the freedom code. You have the power to stay connected to yourself, to make new choices, and begin creating evidence for a new story. But it does take practice and new skills and capacities, and usually support and practice. So, my friends, you may not have written the first chapters of your life, but you get to write what comes next. We have the power. So, let's take a few minutes and just recap here everything we've explored today. Let's take a breath. Okay. And as we revisit these three keys, I'm going to invite you to notice where you feel most ready to grow or where you feel you may need some additional support. You don't need to overthink your answers, just noticing, recognizing whatever feels true for you. So the first key was the missing piece. The missing piece was key number one. We talked about recognizing patterns such as people pleasing, perfectionism, feeling overly responsible, just not as something that's wrong with you, but that's just as survival strategies that developed for a really good reason. And we looked beneath those patterns to the younger part of you that may still be seeking love, approval, safety, connection. And so just asking yourself here now, what pattern am I most ready to understand and begin healing at its root? From key number one, I'm putting this in the chat. As we think about the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the feeling overly responsible, which of those patterns am I most ready to understand and begin healing at the root? And just make a note for yourself. The second key was coming home to yourself. We talked about remembering that you are not your wounds. Beneath the old beliefs and everything you've experienced, who you are has always been worthy and lovable. And we explored what it means to stay present with yourself. We did a little self-love power practice. We offered those younger parts the love and assurance that they may have been seeking from others. So the question here to ask yourself is, where in my life am I ready to stop abandoning myself and begin offering myself more love and support? Where am I ready to begin offering myself more love and support? And just take a minute to reflect on that. Mm. And the third key was the freedom code. We talked about recognizing that your past was not your fault, but that as an adult, we now have the power to choose how we want to show up and what we want to create moving forward. And so I invite you to ask yourself here, what new choice or new way of showing up am I ready to begin practicing? And I'll put that in the chat as well. What new choice am I ready to begin practicing or new way of showing up? Mm. So take a look at what you've written and just notice which of those three areas feels most important to you right now. Maybe you're ready to understand and heal an old pattern. Maybe you're ready to stay more connected to yourself and give yourself the love you've been maybe seeking from other people. Or maybe you're ready to begin making a new choice in your life or your relationships. And just, I'd love if you could just share in the chat, what's the one area where you recognize you're ready to grow, take a next step, or receive more support? What's the one area you want to focus on? Is it healing an old pattern, learning how to give myself that love that I need, or making new choices in the way I'm showing up in relationships? What's the one area where you recognize you're ready to grow, making new choices in relationships, new way of showing up in relationships? Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, because there's something powerful that happens when we name what we want to shift and allow ourselves to be witnessed in that. So thank you for sharing and voicing that. Okay, so in just a moment, we're going to move into our Q&A, and I'll show you how to access the relationship pattern finder that I promised you. But before we do, I have an invitation for you. I'd like to invite you to book a complimentary love breakthrough session with me. This is a private one-on-one conversation where we'll look at the patterns that may be keeping you stuck. We'll talk about what would help you have a more loving relationship with yourself and get clear on the next steps you can take to create healthier, more fulfilling relationships. And if it feels like you'd benefit from more support, we can also talk about what working together might look like. So I've opened a few spots in my calendar over the next few days. I'm going to put the link in the chat here. So go ahead and choose the time that works best for you. You can go ahead and click that link if you want to book a self-love breakthrough session. Like I said, I've opened a few spots over the next few days for those of you that want to get a little more support. And my deepest hope for you is that today you let this be the moment. Let this be the day that you choose to come home to yourself and reconnect with that part of you that already knows you are enough, so that you can show up more fully in your life and in love and create the healthy, fulfilling relationships you want and deserve. So you can go ahead and click that link in the chat, and I'll give you a minute to just grab a spot on my calendar for those of you that want some more personal support. Happy to talk with you further. Just give you a minute to do that. And before I stop the recording, I just want to say to those of you who are watching the replay, I'm so glad that you joined me. And if you're watching this in our private Facebook group and you have a question or a reflection to share, feel free to leave it in the comments there. I will be going back to look for those. And if you prefer to keep it private, you can also email me at Risa@risagaull.com. That's Risa Gaull, Risa at risagaull.com. If you have private questions you want to ask me. And you'll also find the link to book your complimentary self-love breakthrough session included where you are watching the replay. So thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who are here with me live, stay with me. I'm going to stop the recording now. I'm going to put the link to your relationship pattern finder in the chat for you, and we can move into some private time for questions and personal coaching. Okay, so stay on with me if you're here live. And to those of you on the recording, sending you so much love. Bye for now.